Every city you burn, I'm gonna build one high.
Greetings, fellow Empyreans. I am Ashtarothi, the voice of New Eden, and it is Monday, October 30th, YC125, and I don't do normally streams on Mondays, and I've just gotten back from being sick, but I'm here because I have something very important to talk about. I'm very excited, and of course, that is support for Windows 7 and 8 will end soon. I'm kidding, of course. However, today is going to be a big episode. You know, for those of you who've been paying attention, I was very sick towards the end of last week, and my son was sick most of this week. Most of last week. So I wasn't able to stream last week, which was devastating to me and other people as they contacted me. And I spent literally like 48 hours in and out of, like, drifting in and out of consciousness, kind of fever dreamish, although I didn't have very many dreams. But either way, I'm now coming out of it. You might still be able to hear some of it. Is it? Can you hear it in my voice still? I'm on like day 2 of like full-fledged recovery mode. I was not willing. Like, I had to debate between, like, doing it today and doing it on Halloween, and I've been really, really wanting to talk about the Zarzak situation in a much more kind of level-headed way. And then I also realized that I've been wanting to do the Eve Iceberg for a very long time, and so this was a good opportunity for me to prepare for it and get it done. All right, well, at least you guys know that I'm not lying to you, all right? There's no trickery in that one. Yeah, look, this is why maybe I should have opted to wait till tomorrow, but I didn't want to. We're here now. One thing I do want to say is that, and I kind of want to do this going forward, but let's say the first 2 people who message me in-game or out of Discord or whatever with a timestamp of the important stuff in today's stream, I will give a Master Arms Rebuild Accelerator too. So, is it iceberg time? Not quite yet. I want to go over the news. Hold on. We also don't. I mean, we have a 3-hour window, but we don't have a ton of time for everything. So, we do want to kind of jump into it. But I want to go over the news, and then we'll talk about Zarzak, and then we will do the iceberg. For those of you who want a spoiler, this is the iceberg. It is I've been working on this for about half a year now, off and on, but basically it's the Eve lore in iceberg form, and we will talk about that when we get there. But first, I want to point out that we actually have so many tabs today that it's actually breaking how my browser works. I can't click on them. I have to, like, there's too many browsers for them to all show when it's skinny enough for the way I do it. So here's a fun fact. You know, I like to teach people things that they may not know about Eve. Here's something about Windows. We all know Alt-Tab allows us to switch between windows, but did you know that Alt-Shift-Tab allows you to go backwards in the rotation of windows that you are doing? So, like, if you hit Alt-Tab once and are holding it and then hit Shift-Tab without releasing Alt, it'll go back to the first window. And then if you release, then it just won't go anywhere because you've gone back to the first window. Also, fun fact, you can, if you're in a browser window with tabs, Control-Tab will have the same effect as Alt-Tab does in Windows. This is also true in Eve, by the way. So it is an Eve fact. Ha! Got you. So yeah, I actually have to use Control-Tab and Control-Shift-Tab to switch between my tabs. There's too many tabs. So we're going to do this. Okay, yeah. Thank you. Just can you DM me them in a block so that way I can pull them up? Yeah, these are all default Windows hotkey behavior. There's a lot of really handy Windows hotkeys that's worth learning. All right. So first of all, I will talk about this. Windows 7 and 8 support will be ending soon. I'm sure there's going to be somebody freaking out about this. I will say in this case, like, if your computer can run Windows 7 or 8, it can probably run 10 better. And so the one thing that I think is interesting is that it relates to, they talk about the launcher and safety and security, right? Because like their launcher, how their launcher handles credentials and all that kind of stuff, I feel is probably, there. So let me take a step back. Let's say you're trying to update a game that's 15 years old, hypothetically speaking. You have a 15-year-old game, and you need to convert it from a 32-bit system to a 64-bit system. This is going to require basically going through every single thing in the game. You have tools to help you to check to see whether or not it's all working, and basically manually make a bunch of little tweaks here and there in order to make it compatible with the 64-bit architecture instead of 32-bit architecture. No problem. But let's say you've got this big chunk of the program that nobody really uses. If you want to bring it up to the 64-bit architecture, you would have to go through that whole area and update all of the little fiddly bits and fix it in order to bring it back into the 64-bit architecture. Only to then know, you also know that you are forever damning the next person that has to make the next technical update and the next technical update to also have to deal with this giant block of program that less than 2% of the population is even using. This actually happened. It's not hypothetical. This was the captain's quarters. Okay. So one of the biggest reasons why the captain's quarters was once and for all like shuttered was because they were converting the operating system, or they were converting Eve to a 64-bit system from a 32-bit system. Cool. And this got us a bunch of stuff. So what do we have here? Well, they've been building this new launcher because they're building it with, because they're building a launcher in 2023. They're building this launcher with 2023 standards, Angels. Which means, better security and all that sort of stuff, preferably. That's one of the advantages of rebuilding it from some lower level instead of just modifying the one that already exists. So the point is that if they continue to support 7 and 8 past this juncture, at every single step, they're going to have to check, okay, does this create a security violation? Is this a security flaw in 7 and 8, which are not supported by Windows as much anymore, if at all? I can't remember. Somebody can correct me. Do we continue to offer the guarantee, that we will ensure that our stuff is compatible and works with 7 and 8? Or are we going to make sure that our stuff, not like unburden ourselves from that? Because part of that means that, like, if some special security stuff was added in 10, just as a hypothetical, I can't think of anything off the top of my head because I'm not a Windows guy. Windows engineer guy. Either way, I digress. If there is some benefit to Windows 10, then if your program has to be compliant with Windows 7, you have to basically give people the workaround to that benefit, because all they would have to do is be running a Windows 7 or 8 machine, and now they can just get around that exploit, or they can exploit the system, right? So at a certain point, you just say, hey, we can't, you know, especially for security purposes, we can't support old tech. So that's all that's happening here. Whew. Bet you guys didn't think I'd have that much to say about that. All right, moving on. Yeah, not supported by Windows anymore either. Yeah, that's a big one. As soon as Microsoft stops supporting a version of Windows, it's very difficult to continue to support it as a person that like builds software for it, because it's like, well, if there's something wrong, it will never get fixed. No, lazy one. They're just trying to create their build their users into SaaS users, right? You're not supposed to, you know, like you're not supposed to worry about it. You're supposed to just buy the subscription and let Microsoft update. There's no longer, you know, there's so many different things where they've stopped numbering it, and now it's just like this, and it just like updates automatically. And I think Windows 11 is clearly going in that trend. All right. Either way, that's a topic for another day. We've got too much to talk about to go down that rabbit hole. Next, there is a Plex deal going on right now. I think that I was actually just talking to somebody about this yesterday, or like the day before it came out. This is how the new Sanguinary Savant skins are being made available. So that means that they're out and about. The $75 Plex, or the $75 pack has 2 months of MCT, 1,000 Plex, 250,000 skill points, a Cerebral Accelerator, and all the Savant skins. These Savant skins are very good. You can see the ones that are in game already. They have the cool particle effects. I have videos of the Paladin one. Again, I'm not going to go too deep into it today. But, you know, these are usually very high valued skins, and also this is the second year that they've been released, and they're only released through these Plex packs like this in the previous 2 times. So, yeah. And then this is the, I think it's like, what, $7 pack? It's a much smaller pack, and it comes with 13 days of Omega time, 69 Plex, which is the funniest thing that CCP has done in a long time, 100,000 SP, a Cerebral Accelerator, and the Magnate and Coercer Sanguinary Savant skins. Those are the 2 that I actually kind of want to. But yeah. They are pretty good deals. Oh, here we go. These are the skins. Although they still don't like really do them justice, because there's this particle effect that streams out of the eyes and little droplets that fly out the side and out of the eyes of the skull on the top. Maybe I'll show that some other time or later. But in the meantime, let's talk about Zarzak, okay? Recently, well, now it feels kind of recently, and also seems like forever ago because of how I was sick. So during the live test for the new Havoc feature, CCP also kind of revealed through Hoboleaks and through patching of Sissy that a change was coming to Zarzak, in which bubbles are now allowed within Zarzak, along with bombs, and basically I don't think that I couldn't find anything that I was pretty sure is now like the flag unallowed in Zarzak is now like not set true for anything as far as I know on the Singularity server, and this is what's expected to be coming. And I made a really Nick, I guess YouTube or Patreon. YouTube is the best for getting you the benefits. I think Streamlabs is directly through through PayPal, so that might actually give me a bigger percent. But memberships are good because that gives you the benefits too. YouTube membership. I digress. Where was I? Oh yeah. So in my video, I get a little passionate about the whole situation and how dumb I thought it was. Now, at the time, this was partially because I'm a streamer and therefore my job is not only to inform but be entertaining. So of course, if I'm upset about something, I'm going to lean into it. I'm not saying that I was like faking it or anything, but like I'm going to let myself be passionate because you all enjoy that. However, I did also think that this was like obviously absurd. So now that it has come out, a lot more details about who supports these changes and why these changes got made and all that kind of stuff. Given the importance of the situation, I wanted to, in a much more kind of calmer, not Jimmy's rustled kind of way, explain why I think that these changes jeopardize the entire Havoc expansion. But before I get any further into this conversation, I do want to make a point of clarification. During that rant, I refer to the CSM. And at the time, I wasn't sure which CSM specifically was involved in this. And my editor, Arydanika the Queen, thank you very much for all of your help, helpfully put a visual aid in there, which showed the CSM 18. We all had 18 on our mind because 18 has just gotten elected, but they have only been elected for like a month, less than a month at the point that that video came out, I'm pretty sure, which means the CSM at 18 has not even really been formally seated and had their first like full-fledged meeting. It is not possible that the CSM 18 were the CSM that we're going to go with responsible for this feedback. And so this seems to be almost exclusively a CSM 17 thing, which is the outgoing CSM. I feel that's really, really important because I know that there's a lot of bad feelings going on when it comes to this whole situation. And I don't want the current CSM to be pointed at as the people arguing in favor for this. In particular, I want to give my apologies to Oz, who was kind enough to reach out to me and correct me on the issue. Oz is a wonderful dude, smart guy. Check out anything that he produces when it comes to, if you want to know more about the market and the economy and how he works. Glad he's on CSM. Glad that he was thought it was important enough to make it a point to me to that they weren't the ones responsible for this. So CSM 18, we look forward to seeing what you do. CSM 17, let's talk. Okay. So what I have here is Malak's post, which, you know, Malak being, of course, one of my friends and our industry director. So he's really focused on this whole Zarzak thing too. So while I make ranty videos, he makes relatively calm posts. But what I think is interesting about this is like the reactions that we get from people, namely Briscrewball, and then later on, I think in a Reddit post, not necessarily here, we heard from Angry Mustache. Now, I have not gotten anybody from CSM 17 to come out and be like, no, I wasn't supportive of this. So first of all, when I say, when Brisk talks about, hold on. Yeah. When Brisk like acts like he's speaking for the CSM, in this case, it largely seems true. If there's some sort of CSM like internal like CCP or CSM 17 like holdout, I'm unaware of it, and it really seems like one of the things that has happened was that the CSM were so united in the argument that this was a problem that the CCP addressed the issue. Now, I should have pulled up the Reddit post too, but Brisk and Angry both explain a little bit more behind the scenes on this topic, namely that they had actually offered several recommendations to CCP in their brainstorming ideas about how to potentially fix Zarzak. However, CCP has taken this option, not even necessarily because it's the best, but because it's probably the most implementable at this time. So when I'm talking about this, one of the things I really want to focus on is their argument and why I don't agree with it fundamentally. Okay. So the issue is, as he puts it here, Zarzak shouldn't be a superhighway, and bubbles will slow people down and keep fights inside the system rather than outside. So, few things there already. As I mentioned in the previous video, Zarzak does connect both war zones of the Gallente Caldari and the Amar Mimitar war zones, which are low-sec systems that are both within a few jumps of high-sec, and two null-sec systems, one in MPC Garissa's headquarters space up in Delve, and one down in Angel headquarters space in Curse. So very much in the galactic north, and one is calling it very much in the galactic south is a bit of a stretch, but on the south side of things, right? And so the concern has been that groups will be able to use Zarzak to get around way too quickly in a controlled fashion. And there is precedent for this argument, okay? Both in it being a problem and CCP having to address it. Wormholes multiple times have had to be tweaked because of the way that players were using wormholes in order to get around. Capital projection was nerfed in Phoebe by adding in jump fatigue, because the issue is that because of tie-dye, if a fight begins to become big, it becomes a dogpiling effect, as the people heading towards the fight that they've now heard about are moving faster in time than the people that are inside of the fight. So, you can get there in an hour and only miss, 5-10 minutes of the actual simulation. So, or less. So these are real issues, but my counter argument to this is the fact that Zarzak doesn't allow capitals, and the positions that it does come out from don't really lend themselves to being some sort of capital jump superhighway connection point where it's like, oh, I can bring my subcap fleet in through this way, and then my caps. The threat here, the realized threat in this notion, is a subcapital fleet moving, right? Which I would argue, is easier to stop and prevent than magical teleporting capitals that have better projection, or wormholes that are untraceable or have to be constantly hunted for in order to keep track of, as opposed to a static asset that everyone is aware of as being a tool. Effectively, as many people have argued, it'd be the same as if they just made Zarzak a low-sec system, right? It's just a low-sec island that happens to connect to both north and the southern half of the Eve cluster. Sure, that would still be unprecedented. But when you look at it that way, it doesn't seem like that's something that's just terrain, right? You can get used, that's just something that needs to be adapted to. It does mean that people that are closer to that point are more likely to have those people, have things going into, but they're also going to have better access to those gates themselves. So it's going to be like a trade-off to people who live in that area, especially since those areas are by and large NPC null in the most closest area around it. So I don't necessarily agree with this whole roaming group thing. And I also like the idea that this is in particular a problem for smaller groups, as now more and more people will be able to dogpile them. I feel like even if that's the problem, there is a player-built solution, which is you can gate camp anywhere along that path. It's a static line. The weird core assumption in this statement that he never actually really defends, he says keeps fights inside of the system rather than outside. And the thing I don't feel like these people have properly answered to me is, why does the fights have to stay inside of Zarzak, right? Like, why does that have to be the choke point? If the issue is it being a superhighway, why couldn't the solution be the exits, which is what people jump into, right? That seems like that would be a satisfactory solution. So I feel like there's an unanswered, unresolved assumption built into this, but we're going to keep looking at this. He then goes on to say, well, so Mr. Clifford, the argument is I am a group that lives 10 jumps away from this thing, right? Now, people that live on the other side of the cluster can just become aware that I have a Sov fight going on in a day or two, because my timer, or, in a day or whatever, because Sov timers are pretty public. And so I can just decide to jaunt all over there with my subcap fleet, lickety-slit. But, I mean, those roaming, like, that means you now have subcapital fleets roaming through known choke points, which I feel like that can be a player-built deterrent enough. And you don't need to have that deterrence be inside of Zarzak. Now, I will argue as to why bubbles shouldn't be in Zarzak, but right now I'm just trying to counter this argument that somehow there's a reason why it should be inside instead of outside. Next. No D-scan, no bookmarks. Well, time to come up with another way to avoid these bubbles. So this is where, hold on a second, let me pull up some images. Let's see. What do we got here? So this is the fulcrum. Hey, sweet, Marco. So here is Zarzak, okay? And actually, oh no, hold on. No. So the sun is low because the gates are high to the sun, and Zarzak is high. Sorry, the fulcrum is high. So the fulcrum plane, the fulcrum is kind of closer to being on the same plane as the gates. But Zarzak, so hold on. So the fulcrum is within 400,000 kilometers of the sun. So as far as warping is concerned, the fulcrum and the station are basically the same direction. Okay. Yeah, that's right, because the fulcrum sits just above the sun and is functioning as a giant stellar transmuter. Right, got it. Okay. So here's the issue, okay? This means that there's only so many directions. And as you can see from, let's see if we get another one. So I assume that he's landed here on the actual like center point of the fulcrum or of the main site. And as you can see, the main site and oh, here we go. No. Right here is the beacon for the shipcaster site. And right here is the shipcaster. This is also the sun location. So if you warp to the sun, you land here. All right. Now, you can warp to this place at range, and this bubble around it is huge. This is going to be your best place to be decloaked. Here's the shipcaster. So what this means is that, like, in theory, let's give him the benefit of the doubt and say that all of the different points of entry can have unique lines of vectors from each other. So that means there is a grand total of 10 vectors from inside of the fulcrum, or at the shipcaster, right? Which would be the vector towards each of the 5 other locations, the 4 gates and the fulcrum, from towards both the shipcaster itself, because you can warp directly to the shipcaster, and to the beacon. Now, warping to the beacon doesn't land you on the shipcaster, so if there is something bad going on here, you would still have to deal with that as you transport your way to the shipcaster. But, yeah. You get what I'm saying, right? Okay. So, now it's worth noting that you cannot anchor bubbles here. But what that means is that there are only 10 vectors to control in Zarzak. And the way that bubbles work is that when you warp in, or when it goes to warp, it draws a line down your vector and checks up to 100 kilometers in front of and behind your landing point along that vector and says, are there any bubbles? And if there are, then it tries to land you at the skin of the bubble, right? However, it then checks again. So even if this area is larger than 100 kilometers, you can actually stack, as far as I know. Now, this could be untrue. Who knows? Maybe I got fed bad information. I haven't specifically tested this. What this means is that you can place one bubble and then place a second bubble along the same vector, and they will land up to 200 kilometers away from the landing vector. The reason why this is important is because you can actually force people to land potentially well within the danger zone. All right? On top of that, you can do a trap bubble where you have a smaller bubble on the inside, landing them, say, 10K away from the safe zone, but a larger bubble that then gets put up around it by a Hictor or something. Yeah, no, actually, that'd be what it would be. That makes it so that the people inside of that bubble also can't warp away. Now, those people have 10 seconds or whatever, or sorry, they have about 20 seconds or whatever it takes to start breaking down these ships in order to get to Zarzak. Now, or sorry, my bad. To either get within the safe zone or warp away, right? Let's say best case scenario, you land on the bubble and you warp away, right? Much like he suggests in one of his posts, or one of the much as is suggested in one of the posts. The issue with that is that you've already been denied your ability to do this. Because why is this a problem for me? Remember, I live in the fulcrum, and I'm trying to project into the shipcaster, right? So if I attempt to go from the shipcaster to the fulcrum, I can't, like, if there is a bubble there, then I can't go to the shipcaster. My goal isn't to stay alive. My goal is to go through the shipcaster so I can go do the content of the game. So what this means is that 1 or 2 bubbles, like a saber or a dictor or whatever, at the very least, can basically make the entire act of just going to your content as a member of this new militia dangerous, deadly, and or much more complicated to actually even get to your job, basically, right? So like best case scenario, you notice that or you get there, the bubble's there, you warp away, you can warp to some other gate to get one of the other vectors that they're not covering and then get through, right? But that's still optimal. So then what you could also do, like the best, like let's talk about worst case scenario. Let's talk about what a gate camp in Zarzak could or would really look like. See, here's the thing. As we can see from these vectors, the top right one and the top left one are very similar. You know, this vector, like the center and any given Stargate has a vector that is similar between the center and one of the other Stargates, the one on the opposite side, right? Like this vector is kind of straight and this vector is kind of straight. Not totally, but close enough. So that means that each Stargate only really has 3 vectors that it can come from. If you can figure out a way to cover this one incoming vector, like the cross vector, good enough. But let's give it a benefit of the doubt and say that it requires 4 vectors, right? So let's for a second let's say I've got, sabers, right? And here's the thing. I don't even need 4 vectors. I just need the 1. If I know where they're going, then I just need the 1, right? Now, obviously, if I'm going to be doing a null camp, then I'll know, like, oh, well, they're going from this gate to this gate. But let's just assume for a second, I think that someone is coming to the fulcrum, and I want to kill them before they get to the fulcrum, okay? In fact, I don't even want to kill them. Here's the problem. Here's the big problem, number 1. I am a deathless militiaman, okay? So the thing is that any sort of attempts to break up this gate camp by pro-deathless militiamen will mean that we get shot at by the gates. Because, of course, the people putting up these bubbles are going to be militiamen, or at the very least, neutral. Now, there is a secret to this, which is that if you try to warp away while you're in the bubble, you'll actually trigger retribution on them. But you already have to be deep enough into the bubble to not be able to warp. And that's very little consolation to you in the moment, right? Besides the fact that they can control the towers if they wanted to. As in, destroy them if they want to. Yes, Punch, that is correct. So, okay. What am I going with? Let's say I am, so I have a saber cloaked at, on the fulcrum in the direction of the shipcaster. It's cloaked and it's on the edge of the boundary on that order path. In the fulcrum, I have 2 or 1 or 2 sabers to cover the entry vector points for both the shipcaster and the beacon. Okay? I then have bubbles. I have cloaked sabers at each of the stargates, also in line with Zarzak, or with the fulcrum and the shipcaster. You can also make it so that they have them to each other too, but I'm just, whatever. So maximums here, we're talking about, I think we said 10, call it 20 sabers total. May seem like a lot, but the problem is that much less than perfect on this will still work. So if somebody undocks from the Fulcrum and begins warp to the shipcaster, the cloaked saber can notify the sabers on grid with the shipcaster to bubble up. This will capture those pilots in the bubble, right? However, even if they land and turn around and warp off, wherever they warp to, you already have a saber there in vector. You can force them to continually land inside of the death zone for basically, I mean, like, again, there's a very finite number of vectors to cover. So you could do this in theory to keep people from being able to warp anywhere safe at all. And the biggest problem with that is that none of this, like, this is independent of how big of a fleet it is. So when we're talking about that threat of the roaming pack, the thing is that it may seem like a lot to have 20 sabers, but this 20 sabers could kill 150 plus. That's an interesting question, Dutch. Are you suggesting that? Because you can't be cloaked on the Zarzak gate, or at the Fulcrum. Is that what you're suggesting? That'd be an interesting thing to check. That's actually a really good question, Dutch. Either way, my point is that 1,000-man fleet of Typhoons, that would just kill them. A 10,000-man fleet of Typhoons, that would just kill them. Furthermore, you could actually go even more insane than this. Like, we've actually thought about all kinds of different ideas. Like, if you know when they're going to warp, you can actually boosh a saber bubble deeper into the pocket, so that way they land over 100 kilometers into the death zone. And then all you have to do is hold them there. Like, if you boosh out a second saber, then that second saber bubbles, and congratulations, you just killed whatever it is that was in that fleet. They're all dead, 100%. It's kind of a crazy maneuver, but if you think about it, it takes 2 sabers and a command destroyer. And the vector isn't even that hard to make because you just align to the place that they're warping in from. And you jump, or, whatever. It helps if the opponent has more than a 6-second align time, if you're wanting to get the bubble out there in time. But the bubble only has to be out in position at the moment that they enter warp. But furthermore, there is no directional scan. So you can't even check if something is going on. They can have eyes, even if they're uncloaked, you can see like a saber wandering around, or you can see anything just outside Zarzak, or, the Fulcrum, and that's just the eyes. But you have no idea whether or not that's real eyes, or if the shipcasters, camp to hell, unless like there's a coordinated effort to constantly keep that protected, which I'll get to that in a second. So here's the kick. Actually, no, we'll get to that right now. Here's the thing about that. Guys, this is faction warfare level stuff. I mean, yes, it's piracy, yo-ho, yar, outlaw life, blah. But this is still fairly newbie-friendly content. This is still running sites that are frigates, destroyers, cruisers. These are things that are designed to be done by individuals picking up. Sure, you have militias that you can like kind of bleed into, and there's militia fleets and whatever, but a lot of this stuff is just done by individuals or very small groups that are just doing, getting in their ship and going to the action, whatever. They do not have the coordination or, whatever, in order to deal with an actual coordinated disruption effort in Zarzak. It's just like, and furthermore, even if they did, let's assume that like it becomes such a problem that all of the deathless agents all get together and create like a Night's Watch. Here's the thing. The pirates are already on the back foot with this feature. The empires, I mean, CSB even said this. The empires have been establishing their militia groups for 12 years. We are going up against groups with over a decade of history and coordination and resources and fits and plans and leaders. And I know this because I ran one of those groups, So if we have to spend major coordination efforts just allowing Zarzak to be safe enough for us to be able to go do the content, that's just another, it's like hindrance upon hindrance, all of that. Like, how can we do coordinated cool strikes or do stuff in the war zone if we have to spend, how do I have enough people to do my fleets in the war zone when I have to have a team of people patrolling and keeping Zarzak safe? Or at least aware of whether or not there are bubbles there. So that's why I have a problem with this. Okay? It isn't actually like Zarzak is not disruptive to nullsec or really anywhere in K-space in a way that isn't solvable through other methods, i.e. camping the outsides, right? Actually, here's another good point. Like, as of right now, if you're traveling from Turner to Alsavoinen, you don't need to worry about it that much, right? Because there's not going to be bubbles. There's not going to be bubbles in Lowsec. There's not going to be bubbles in Zarzak. There's not going to be bubbles in Lowsec. But after this change, that you can actually camp the Turner to Alsavoinen gate, which is also not great. And so, like, I think that that's going to be a problem. I'm trying to make sure I have all of my thoughts because there's so much to this. Yeah, it's already going to be, that's not even including the pain in the ass of trying to get assets into Zarzak. As I was saying with that whole, like, camping thing. Although, to be fair, though, honestly, because I like to be very fair with these arguments, hauling ships should be, all of the hauling ships used to get stuff into Zarzak will likely have the capability of being interdiction nullified. But what I do want to point out, though, is that the idea that there is some other solution to the bubble issue, that we should just get clever and devise solutions to it, doesn't really work, because the whole point of Zarzak is it's very tightly constrained in what is and isn't allowed. So by exposing us, by having bubbles be part of that, it actually means that our ability to deal with bubbles is greatly hindered, right? It actually makes bubbles extremely powerful, more powerful in Zarzak than anywhere else in New Eden. But my biggest problem with all of this is that I've been kind of tiptoeing around this idea, but nullsec has gotten a lot of attention for their problems with this. And the adding of the bubbles and bombs to Zarzak is very clearly a very nullsec solution to the problem. I'm not worried about nullsec gate camping Zarzak. That's at best a curiosity for them. What I am most concerned about is that what we have here between the number of pilots that are required, the types of ships that are used, the consequences of invasions, the manpower required for these different things, and the direct access to the war zones to Zarzak, you've actually entered into a very new problem where it is now more efficient manpower-wise for militias to defend their territory by locking down Zarzak while running the sites, as opposed to actually fighting over the territory itself. This is why I say that it's going to kill the feature. This is why it matters. This is why the decision to have bubbles in Zarzak isn't just a coin flip. Let's just see one way or the other. If it doesn't work, we'll put it out the other way. It is going to be tactically behoovant to the militias to ensure that Zarzak remains as locked down as it possibly can. That's it. That's the problem. Not that someone might be convinced, not that there might be some hypothetical people move. No. The actual militias, rather than fighting across 7 systems and try to plex them all up and or not plex them, but they're securing systems while we're trying to corrupt systems. They have to work on all the different systems at once because they can't push down corruption once it's gone up. The only way to really stop corruption from growing is to cut it off at the head. The only way to do that is lock down Zarzak. And sure, we're going to get other techniques. If that was to happen, we'll just stage out of K-Space and do normal faction warfare style. But remember, this is designed to be accessible to people. The happy path, the obvious solution, the thing that this entire feature is designed for, if this is allowed, is just going to get ignorant players that are interested in jumping into content killed in a way that they feel is the most unfair way possible. And here's the thing, they're going to be right. So I'm not worried about whether or not a bunch of players gangs up on another nullsec group in nullsec. That is emerging content. What I'm worried about is people having their game taken away from them in such a way that it actually suggests that they should just quit the game instead. It would be the equivalent of blackout being permanent in nullsec. Just think about that. Bubbles for lowsec, not for Zarzak. Join the invited. Thank you for your time. 07. How was that? Was that good? I think that was good. Did I nail it? No, I mean, CCP did notice it themselves, but they did push back. But this is the only solution that they had possible. They did. So the solutions that the CSM suggested were things like polarization, and some of the solutions I've suggested is there could be you could argue that no bubbles on the grid with the shipcaster or the fulcrum, but you could bubble, say, the nullsec gates. If you wanted to do something like that, I'd be much less willing to argue to this vehemently. But I think, I mean, if you hear my argument, you can see why that is the thing. But I do also want to point out one more time that, not one more time, but I do want to point out before we move on completely from all of this, that like Brisk Ball is a pretty decent dude, and he has done a lot for EVE Online. He's a good dude. He's a good CSM guy. I've talked with him many times before, and I like him. And he supports his constituents, and he's also not alone in all this. Like I said, Angry Mustache came in and gave a lot of the defense and a lot of further arguments, and you can see why CSM could come to this conclusion, especially in their own echo chamber, with nobody on the team that are invested in the idea of Zarzak. There is some concern. Like, I have had plenty of people accuse, and there's problematic posts that seem to suggest that people in the CSM might be, like the destruction of the feature itself might be the goal. But I don't want to make that accusation outright, which is why I didn't do it in the main part of the show and why I'm not talking about it too detailed here. But I just think it's a frustrating situation, and I can only hope it gets fixed. This is not the first time that so when Resource Wars came out, the main reward for them was what's it called? Volatile skins. And these were skins that would be destroyed when you died. And that was even okay, except for they also were bind on pickup. And because of that, they had to... There's a whole bunch of issues, but the problem is that basically they were very expensive and effectively a scam on the LP store for the Resource Wars. And as a result, the Resource Wars failed as a feature. Now, they brought back Resource Wars a few years ago as Mining Blitz, and it's actually been very popular amongst people that like it every single time that they've done it, which tells me that like the original Mining Blitz, the original Resource Wars mechanics was actually pretty well done, but it's literally the concept of volatile skins, and more importantly, the concept of bind on pickup rewards from the LP store and stuff like that, being so toxic to EVE Online that it destroyed the entire feature that otherwise could have been really, really good. And I will admit that my fear or my energy on this comes from the idea that, yeah, it could all, like, it could fail. On the other hand, like, CCP has so much on this, like, even if my worst case scenario comes to pass, I stand firm that, or like, I'm confident CCP is already working on a solution to that problem. If they are going to go through with it the way it is, they're already considering what they're going to do if this becomes an issue. By the way, also to clear, I don't give a shit about bombs. Bombs can be in Zarzak. Yeah, exactly. That's why I kept on talking about how many vectors there are. Under normal conditions, you get around... Well, yeah, but you can't go... Okay, the whole point of Zarzak is that you get into your ship, your frigate or your destroyer or your cruiser, and then you warp to the shipcaster, and then you jump through, and then you go and do the corruption mechanic stuff, right? So if your entire ship is just based around getting through the bubble, then how the hell, like, that, no, that isn't going to work either, right? It's just, it's so, any rate. Are we saying that they're just too committed? Who? I think Bubbles killing content for newbies also applies to Lowsec and is silly there too. I would normally agree with you. However, the very temporary nature of the insurrections and the consequences of the insurrections is the reason why it's okay. Like, as far as I'm concerned, it is okay for an area to be inaccessible for a period of time due to ongoing crisis, right? Like, it is okay for systems to change in how accessible they are. And it's okay for systems to be extra hostile or extra friendly for periods of time. As long as they're not, as long as everything kind of trends back towards being like, as long as there are resistances to it becoming all one or the other. You know what I mean? CCP's too committed. I'm not sure what you mean. I don't. Maybe I'm not following what you're trying to say. Okay. Well, I've got 2 hours left, and let's talk in. I just realized that was actually, this was the short part of the show. So now I've got to get into the real show. You ready? I have to fit a Corsa that can somehow win a fight against T2 variants of itself. Right, or bring friends, or and that's assuming. So that assumes a few things, Aaron. One, it assumes that you can get to the safe zone in time. Two, it assumes that the only thing there is a saber. Three, it assumes that the saber is attackable without you getting retribution. Right? Like, it's just... Any rate. Best thing I can see is flying an interdiction cable hold to the shipcaster, then tethering it to the fob there and swapping fittings. Not ideal. But that, do you understand that the implied nature to that is that we would have to stock the fob with fits every single time. Which I guess, I mean, maybe. But like, so every 3 weeks, we have to restock a fob. And Lord knows what happens afterwards. And that's assuming we can stock the fob, which we have no actual evidence of yet. I don't think even, yeah, well, either way, I digress. Right, and the interceptors don't make really good flex fighters. I'd like to see shipcasters be given a null set, given the ability to protect ships directly into enemy capital, but at the price of it being expensive to build. So, Nixie, this has been kind of one of those things that we've talked about for a little while, which is that, you know, CCP's suggested that terraforming is coming to nullsec at some point. There's been, I don't know if things have changed or whatever, but like, it really does seem like they're leading towards nullsec being able to get stellar transmuters to do certain effects. And it is very likely that construction of one of the shipcasters is one of the effects that you can get. Now, what is that capable of? Hard to say. You would still have to make the shipcaster landing beacon. But the counter there is, you know, with Turner, what happens if a shipcaster or if a stellar transmuter blows up? You would also need to find a AO Blue Star. How many fobs will be active at one time? Just one? One for each war zone, I think. The insurrections cannot go to nullsec. They're only going after Concord-controlled territory. Yeah, that's a good point, Malak. Like, a lot of these what-ifs, like, the problem is that sooner rather than later, it just becomes easier to stage in lowsec than in Zarzak. Bratch, I specifically wanted to make this video because, as I said at the beginning, or I wanted to make that segment because I wanted to speak about it in a much more kind of logical way as opposed to a reactive way and address some of the counterpoints that were being made. That's all. But we are going to go into the cool part now. AO Blue seems specific to making ISO 5 Porvidium and powering the caster, or other specific things related. Yeah, AO Blue Stars are quote-unquote special for the transmuters, for sure. I bet shipcasters will be more permanent Titan bridges and null. Well, again, you still have to build the landing bridge. Hive time? No. Okay. Yeah, I thought, initially I thought a shipcaster would be able to send a ship to a system far away and you could have a way to select a destination. Yeah, I do like the fact that the shipcaster is a way for the AI to kind of direct action of players that are explicitly part of groups to support the NPCs. Like, that part of it is actually pretty cool. Occasional panic about the Uedama being corrupted. Uedama, I think, is 100% safe. However, there are several points along the lines towards Amar that are not safe, to include Heck. Yeah. Any rate, it was a little bit weird for them to be like, yeah, and these shipcasters will allow the transportation of things without the use of a Cyno. It requires this giant device that's larger, more complicated than a Cyno, but it doesn't require a Cyno. It's weird. Okay, guys. Are we ready for it? Are we ready for it? Greetings, fellow Empyreans. I am Ashtarothi, the voice of New Eden, and this is the Eve Lore Iceberg. Take 1. All right. Whew. Oh, Lazy One got ads? Oh, no. All right. So I'll talk slowly for a little bit. What do we have here? This is something I've been working on for at least 6 months. I've been thinking about for at least a year, probably more. Time means nothing anymore. Lore icebergs are now a time-honored tradition on YouTube. Why is Heck not safe? Because it's a 0.5 system directly next to the war zone. We're going to corrupt the hell out of that system. Okay. So in a time-honored tradition of YouTubers talking about lore, I have assembled an iceberg for the lore of EVE Online. What is a lore iceberg? For those of you who do not know, a lore iceberg is when you basically take all of the information and secrets and things known about a particular universe or fandom or story or whatever, and you kind of divide them up with the most well-known, understood things to be at the surface, and it getting increasingly more unhinged as you go down, okay? So a lot of people have asked me to do like a comprehensive EVE lore guide, and there's tons of EVE lore stuff to do. This is the closest thing to that I've been able to make. Now, this presentation is not going to be in chronological order. I have links. Okay, actually, I don't have a link down below. I have a link to the links down below because there's so many links that are going to be involved in this presentation that I had to make an entire Notion page for it. That link is down below. But my point is that actually, I don't even remember what the point was for that. But what I've done, oh yeah, I have also videos, previous videos that I have made on these topics split out in their own links, including my EVE lore speedrun video, any percent. That's the one that puts everything in chronological order. This is more, we're going to continually go kind of back to the same topics over and over again as we drill it down deeper into the mysteries, okay? The other thing is that let me think. Things towards normally an iceberg, as you go down, it's less well-known information or less agreed upon information. More of the wacko conspiracy theory stuff. However, I also, like, in EVE, there's kind of two different levels of knowledge. There's what is known in universe, and there's what is known out of universe. So towards the top, especially, is things that are well known in universe and out of universe. So these are things that are events that have happened or things that are at least people are aware of, both in universe and out of universe. They're the surface level lore. And then as we go down, things might be lower because they are less well known to us or less well known to the humans, or, to the people in the universe. We'll talk about that as we go on. Let's just get started, shall we? And we start with the attack on the president's elections. So the Gallente federal elections occur once every. Hold on. I've already ruined everything. Wow, I got 6 seconds in. Excellent. All right, so federal presidential elections. I guess I did have the links. So in YC112, there was the presidential elections. The presidential elections occur every 5 years, 6 years. There was a special election because of all of lore is like a secret from your typical player, sadly. I mean, yes, but that's what we're trying to fix. So either way, the presidential election happens fairly regularly, every 5 or 6 years, whatever. That isn't what we're here for. But the latest election was a bit unusual. Oh no, that's just them starting the. I totally bungled the first one, didn't I? Yeah. Hold on. Do I not? Okay. Whatever. Damn it. All of these tabs and none of them are right. Give me 1 second. We'll have to do this again. I could have sworn. Hold on. Talk amongst yourselves. Why haven't I done a thing that collects all the links together for this tab? Why have I not done that? Okay, whatever. We'll do a live moment. So as we were ramping up for the YC122 elections, on election day, there were a series of attacks against most of the candidates of that election. Governor Celis Agard's motorcade was attacked by a major... Hey, thanks, Nicholas. 07 to my new producer. Excellent, thank you. So Governor Celis Agard's motorcade was attacked in a major bombing outside of New Rhine Stadium on Mai 4. Massive casualties are reported. The status of Governor Agard... What is happening? Broad, thank you. Okay, let's start out. Let's start over. Let's begin with the Federation elections. The Federation does elections every so often, like 5 or 6 years. However, the latest one, the one that happened in 2020, YC122, had a disruption. On the day of the election, the most of the presidential candidates were attacked, okay? They were pretty serious. Celis Agard's motorcade was attacked by a major bombing outside of New Rhine Stadium. Massive casualties. She was actually killed. She was killed in this process and cloned with an unknown amount of backup time. And then multiple explosions and or gas attack. Hold on a second. I can find a better version of this. Because this is the latest. This was the first breaking news. Here we go. So this was once we actually kind of knew what was going on. Celis Agard survives assassination via backup clone. Governor Agard recovered in secure location. Experiential time loss unknown. Which, of course, we start at the tip of the iceberg with a conspiracy theory, right? Turns out that the president of the Federation was assassinated successfully just a few months prior to being elected to become president. So I'm sure that's fine. Shelleen Remnev is in critical condition in Arcurial City. Her aircraft crashed. Suvio Belleron was placed in a medical coma to reduce risk of neurological damage. He's apparently, but he got up and is now alive and well and being a thorn in Celis Agard's side. Waaki Kayara is slightly injured in a Manar Veterans Association on Manar. I don't know what's happened to that person too much. Republic Command offensive on oh no, that's different. Yeah, so that was the result of the assassination attempts for the most part. Okay. Right. Experimental time loss means the time that had elapsed since her last synchronization. Right. So like if I get my brain backed up and then 2 days later I die, there's no way for my backup to have my last 2 days of experience. This is something that they also address in Sine Wave Omega or Sine Wave Alpha, which we will talk about more. But let's keep going. Next, Pochvin. Well, Pochvin is a area of space that was created by the Triglavian Collective. The Triglavian Collective began their invasions in 2019. And at first, their invasions was little more than like Sancha incursions. They would just come in for a little while, harass people for a few days, and then leave. And then Eclipse happened.
Through the mist, I saw a figure emerge, and with it, a darkness advanced, devouring and reshaping. And as the sunlight cast its final, everlasting shadow, I felt a chill rise from the abyss and eclipse the world.
With the third phase of invasions, the Triglavians began capturing systems and establishing stellar transmuters to begin to transform the stars until the forces aiding the Triglavian Collective managed to capture a total of 27 star systems.
Despite an apparently lasting halt in major invasion operations by the Triglavian Collective, Edencom officials remain deeply concerned by this situation across the cluster, and all forces remain on high alert. Edencom units have taken the initiative by carrying out monitoring and evacuation operations in the 27 systems under Triglavian occupation, often supported by loyal Capsuleers. Fleets operated by Capsuleers have substantially contributed to evacuations in systems as far apart as Vale and Skarkon. Triglavian resistance to these efforts remains high, and they continue to build up formidable defenses in the 27 occupied systems. Concord and governments across New Eden are urging the evacuation of citizens from those systems now under Triglavian control, even as New Eden's Stargate network struggles to maintain reliable service. It is now clear that for the past few weeks, the Gate network has been suffering intermittent but visible power fluctuations. While Concord and Edencom had not commented directly for many days, the increasing frequency of the fluctuations moved the Secure Commerce Commission to confirm that it is investigating the situation as a matter of urgency. The precise cause and mechanism of the fluctuations has not yet been determined. However, scientists in public institutions across New Eden agree that the tremendous changes to stars in Triglavian-held systems are very likely the root cause of these gate anomalies.
If we assume the frequency continues to rise at the same rate and extrapolate forwards, it seems inevitable that the fluctuations will begin to severely affect the stability of the gate connections. If the phenomenon does not stop soon, it's likely that the Stargate network of New Eden will experience a major, perhaps catastrophic event in 3 to 4 days' time. While the functions of Stargates, jump drives, and so forth are well understood in theory and practice, it should be remembered that there are many open questions as to the fundamentals of space-time mechanics and dimensional
Yes, that is Scott Manley.
connections. Triglavian FTL conduit technology operates in a manner which is clearly related to stable wormhole formation and transit, but it is sufficiently different that we do not fully understand it yet. Naturally, many theories do exist on the subject, but none are comprehensive enough to fully explain the different realms of space which arise from extreme space-time topologies, phenomena such as dead space pockets and abyssal dead spaces. What we are seeing across the Gate network is a novel phenomenon, but we know from the Selene incident, Caroline Star, metaliminal storms, and archaeological evidence of ancient catastrophes, it is possible for powerful effects to cascade through Gate networks or cause wide-scale wormhole instability. Ultimately, in order to protect the wider network, we may be forced to disconnect the gates leading to Triglavian-held systems.
Despite the looming threat of a Stargate crisis, Edencom's Provost Marshal Cassia Vulcaneer has emphasized that the threat from Triglavian forces remains high. Marshal Vulcaneer has commended Capsuleers loyal to Edencom for their efforts across almost 200 star systems invaded by the Triglavians. Orders have been issued to monitor Triglavian operations in occupied systems, disrupting them where possible. Even so, the main effort for Edencom and Empire regulars at this time is focused on evacuating civilians out of occupied systems. This monumental task has been carried out with significant success in low population systems, and particularly...
Yeah, good for them. Okay, so as we can see, the gates began to be disturbed, and then, which leads to this presentation, which I'm going to skip the war and delve
Recent
portion
development,
of this.
the war
Let's go.
is likely far from over. The empires of New Eden are slowly adjusting to the aftermath of the Stargate disruptions that severed the links to Triglavian-occupied systems and led to the formation of a new region called Quzxpon. It is widely believed that the creation of an artificial region consisting of the 27 New Eden systems conquered by the invaders was the final act in the Triglavian campaign. Despite the cessation of invasions, Edencom's Provost Marshal Cassia Vulcaneer has secured ongoing funding for the organization from Concord and the 4 core empires, reiterating the need for vigilance.
New Eden's people have suffered many grievous blows and fought hard throughout the invasion. I have witnessed the strength of our fighters, the loyalty of our supporters, the persistence of our collective defense with my own eyes. I am proud of all of our people. Yes,
Sorry about the sound balance.
civilization has lost territory to the inhuman Triglavian invaders. Yes, we have lost many billions to naked aggression, treachery, and occupation. We must look to preserve what we have defended and remain vigilant. Even still, we cannot forget those who remain under the heel of the invaders. Edencom will continue to fight for their recovery and liberty. I welcome and deeply appreciate the continuing commitment of the Concord member states to the struggle.
Edencom's best minds in the fields of exploration, science, and military logistics are continuing to work on an effort to map the alterations to the space-time topology of the invaded systems, and New Eden in general. Though it is gravely dangerous, Edencom's forces continue to gather data on Quzxpon systems, disrupt Triglavian operations, and seek means to navigate the region more effectively. Evacuation of the billions still trapped remains out of reach, but it is a highly political priority for the empires. For their part, the Triglavians have rapidly moved to assert even deeper control over the systems and worlds of Quzxpon. Having divided the spoils between their three clades, there are disturbing and clear signs of vast changes being wrought in space and on the planets of the occupied systems. The Triglavians are opposed by Edencom, but also by resurgent drifter incursions, with hostile and highly advanced rogue drones also making their presence felt. As so often, the Triglavian spokesperson Zoria Triglav has broadcast a message asserting their dominion and apparently encouraging the treacherous Kybernauts, or Capsuleers, that have gone over to the Triglavian side.
We are Zoria Triglav. We speak for the
communication outside the struggle. We continue the work of sublimation.
I guess I'll just do this real quick because they're kind of hard to hear and they're definitely hard to understand. The first two lines is just, we are Zoria Triglav. We speak for the convocation of Triglav outside of the struggle, which is just their general like opening and closing, saying who they are and who they represent. So then they say that the work of sublimation, which is destruction of the Poshlost, which is the goal of Zoria Triglav, which we'll talk about a little bit later, continues in Quzxpon.
Subornest Kybernauts, hear the words of our prayer.
Heed them.
Subornos Kybernauts, heed the words of our prayer. Sorry, hear the words of our prayer and heed them. A prayer in Triglavian universe is kind of like a message of request more than anything. So they're saying, hey, listen to our instructions, listen to our request, and pay attention and follow them.
Totality and the weaving of Quzxpon.
Totality and the weaving of Quzxpon has been realized.
The flow of
Has been anchored in the domain of Quzxpon.
I don't believe that's true, Saren, because the sublimation of Poshlost flow, whatever sublimation is, it's bad. Yeah.
The flow of
Has been anchored in the domain of Quzxpon.
The flow of Viraj has been anchored into the domain of Quzxpon. I believe that is to say basically our future, our destiny leads us to Quzxpon, or more importantly, our effort to escape Bouillon is now anchored in Quzxpon.
Stabilization of the ancient domains proceeds.
Stabilization of the ancient domains proceeds. Not quite sure what that means. There's a lot of theories about it. I've talked about it in other videos. But ancient domains means K-space, basically. Known space.
Cladistic dominion in glorification.
glorification has been invoked.
Cladistic dominion and glorification has been invoked. Basically, the clades divided up Quzxpon into 3 different territories, 3 different constellations, and they've kind of been given authority over their own clades, or over their own domain. That's because the clades actually don't really get along that well.
Clouds within the struggle have eminence in their cries.
Clades within the struggle have eminence within their cries. In other words, so there's the Triglav outside of the struggle, which are the ones that are not representing the conflict between the clades. But then there's the Triglavians inside of the struggle, which are part of the clade proper. So those are the ones that are like they're dividing up the territory. As I said, they're given domain over their territory, and ever since then they have attacked each other. There's been aggression between the Triglavian forces in each other's territory, basically nonstop throughout the history of Pochvin.
Foreign Narodnia, proving fitness to join the floor, shall be glorified.
Shall be glorified.
Fitness.
Wait.
Foreign Narodnia, proving fitness to join the floor, shall be glorified.
Shall be.
So Kyber, foreign Narodnia. I don't know why what they say right before, but basically augmented foreign Narodnia, which is Capsuleers, who are working with the flow.
Foreign Narodnia, proving fitness to join the floor, shall be glorified.
Shall be.
Yeah, those proving fitness to join the flow will be glorified. This was like, you know, as we gain standings, we're allowed into Pochvin, we're allowed to use their tools more, etc.
Glorified. Kybernots proving praxis postlost extent.
Station shall be glorified.
So loyal Capsuleers who proceed with destroying all corruption in Pochvin will be glorified.
Sobornost Kybernots are exhorted
To extirpate postlost elements.
They just repeated themselves, basically saying that. So all Sobornos Kybernauts are now exhorted to destroy Pochlost within Pochvin. That is their number one goal. That's why destroying enemies of the Triglavians in Pochvin give you standings with the Triglavians, even if it doesn't elsewhere.
We continue the work of sublimation of postlost.
postlost flow.
We
We
We speak for the convocation of Triglav outside this struggle. We are Zoria Triglav.
Zoria Triglav.
All right, so that's Pochvin. There's no way we're getting through this whole thing today. Anoikis. In the same way as like Pochvin is this artificial systems created by the Triglavians, or this artificial region created by the Triglavians, the Anoikis is
This game.
no. Oh God, I forgot.
Not
This is.
ready.
I'm going to have to deal with this in a different way. It's like my ads in Eve are, or my ads on my on my main browser is becoming ridiculous. I'll show you guys in a second. Anywho, the whole point is that so in 2008, the Isogen 5 caches, which we'll talk about later, explode, and this causes numerous spatial temporal anomalies known as wormholes to begin appearing all over New Eden. These wormholes then also lead to an unknown group of previously unknown group of systems, which are named. We didn't nickname it Anoikis. Apparently, we discovered that the nickname was Anoikis. Either way, called Anoikis. There's a lot of mysteries because Anoikis is what's known as or what I like to call the puzzle box. It's a big piece of like the lore puzzle that was put involving the sleepers and the drifters and the Talakan and all those kinds of things. So Anoikis is wormhole space. Yeah, I don't mind getting ads, Eve ads on my Eve videos, but like it seems that YouTube has gone to like now showing me multiple ads that are multiple minutes long. Next is the Orphix project and Code Aria inquiry. So this is the Code Aria inquiry, which basically Code Aria inquiry was a special project by Concord to analyze the effects of, or to analyze the events surrounding the creation of the rogue drones. So this document was a document that was declassified by Concord. You can I find it usually when I go looking for it on the Eve Uni page. Oh, here we can watch the trailer now. Yay! Those are the 10 top simultaneous explosions of Isogen 5. Yeah. However, that's where I'm going to leave Anoikis for now, because that's like a whole category. Like that's a whole discipline of talk right by itself. So yeah, where were we? Orphix Project and Code Aria. Yeah. So this is actually a really interesting read. It talks about how the rogue drones kind of came to be and how they controlled, when the gates all opened up and all that kind of stuff. It's a really interesting document and worth perusing over for anybody who's trying to understand the history of the rogue drones. And Syllabix jump gates use Triglavian technology. So I put this one at the very top. I probably could have put it even one layer down. This is one of those cool secrets that they don't really talk about too much. But so in Syllabix jump gates, these are the jump gates that they added into the game to replace the old school, POS jump gates. However, one of the things that doesn't get brought to mind very much is that to build one of these things, you have to have a structure exert conduit coupler. And inside that exert conduit coupler, it requires covert research tools, crystalline isogen 10, and 0-point condensate. Crystalline isogen 10 and 0-point condensate, of course, being the major materials that kind of that show that it is Triglavian technology. And we read from the description: a novel structured component developed by Upwell Consortium and uses the construction of faster-than-light transport devices such as jump gates. The exert conduit coupler is derived from experiments on analysis of Triglavian spatiotemporal filament and conduit gate technology. While replication of Triglavian FTL transport technology has proven challenging, a method of enhancing the establishment of stable wormhole links between point-to-point devices like jump gates have been developed using the so-called exotic entangled reaction transmission principle, which is exert. So what this is showing is, hey, yes, thank you for that. So what this is showing is that basically from the invasions on, the empires and Upwell have been using Triglavian technology. I believe this is why the Stargates that were made during the Stargate construction project was Triglavian. I think we talked about that. That's actually listed later. But yeah, it turns out in Syllabix gates require Triglavian technology. All right. An Interbus CEO's coincidental heart attack. in YC124, which is 2022, in the middle of, basically this is at least a year or two after the Triglavians have captured the 27 star systems. The Amarr, during that process, managed to capture one of the stellar transmuters. That during the process of invasions, the Edencom forces managed to not only stop the invasion once it hit liminality, but managed to pull it all the way back and secured the system for Edencom, leaving behind one of these stellar transmuters in the system of Arshat. The Amarr started building up their research facilities around there, and then in 2022 began deploying stellar transmuters of their own. This causes a huge uproar within diplomatic communities, because basically they put them down in systems that are ostensibly Mimitar-owned systems, but were currently under Amarrian occupation in the war zone, right? So these are systems that are in the war zone, they go back and forth, but like in the war zone, every system has an owner, like underneath the surface. Like, you know, Hades is a Gallente system. It can be occupied by the Caldari, but that's how like the systems, like that's how the systems that monitor this whole thing sees it. So in the same sort of way, like Turner is by the conventions, a Mimitar originating system, but they were under control of the Amarr during the time. And it wasn't just Turner, it was also Egmar and Vard. But so as this is all going down, one of the big questions was the evacuation of the people and things in these systems. And the Amarr actually do this oddly aggressive actions of trying to prevent people from evacuating and moving things out of the Amarr. But this, in combination with what was going on over in the Caldari Amarr side with Othanoon, basically was beginning the process of just ripping apart the previous Concord agreements, right? The very agreements and organizations and institutions that that have allowed New Eden to be as stable as they are, right? And one of these groups was the Interbus. Interbus, in an extraordinary meeting of the Interbus board, ended in chaos today after representatives of the four founding interstellar empires walked out of the session of the Archaeology and Oriphe 4. The meeting was hastily scheduled following a report that the Imperial prototype stellar transmuter built in Turner had become active, with fears that those in Egmar and Vard would soon follow. The meeting took place behind closed doors, but according to Interbus insiders, the session ended without resolution of any of the points of issue. The Emperor representatives present were completely unable to agree on how New Eden's most popular transport and delivery network should respond to the alarming and divisive news from the Amarr Mimitar war zone. And then they go and talk about what all this stuff, right? So the four empires collectively own Interbus at this point, but they can't agree on what to do about this. This is October 2nd, YC124. October 11th, YC124. Interbus CEO Hakuka Peruka dies at age 77. So, Peruka passed away unexpectedly in the early hours of the morning. He was discovered by his staff in the estate of Ulai 3, which Ulai, of course, is the headquarters of Concord, and is believed to have suffered massive cardiopulmonary arrest event in his sleep. So, what you're telling me is that 9 days after this disagreement, which threatens Interbus and, you know, the future of diplomacy in New Eden, suddenly the Interbus CEO gets a massive heart attack, and everyone agrees that his how is it that he yeah, he's not like the sun. So they immediately turn around and appoint CEO Alexander Dukas, who is like well liked by a bunch of the people, including the son of the Interbus CEO, who was at the location to Let me see if I can find it. Maybe not. So his son was there. Yeah. His eldest, Ilmara Pakura, is also an Interbus board member and was staying on Uli 3 with his father at the time. So his son was there. And then his son immediately turns around. The death of Pakura and appointment of Dukas comes as a representative of Big Four empires have been unable... blah, 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 blah. Yeah, despite these concerns, Ilmari Pakura has led the board in giving a new CEO a vote of confidence. A rising star in the organization, Dukas has a reputation for innovative thinking. The new CEO was quick to honor this predecessor's legacy, saying that blah, 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 blah. So that same guy, so the eldest son happens to be there when this mysterious heart attack happens, and he turns around and pushes for Dukas to become the new head of Interbus. Great, great, great. What happens to that? Well, he immediately unifies under Evermore. So 2 days later, so argument, 9 days later, there's a death. 2 days after the death, they reincorporate as Evermore. Okay? With Alexander Dukas as the board member, and they found a whole bunch of new corporations and stuff. Yeah. And then I just realized there's a third one. Hold on. And then on the 20th, so 7 days after that, they announce their new AI assistant and organization, Paragon and Iris. Paragon is, of course, how all of the Evermarks get delivered. Paragon is the main manager of those. It's technically like Paragon LP. And all of the Paragon stations are ran by a single embodied artificial intelligence known as Iris, who is sort of creepy. So this was released 10 days after the guy died. So apparently it only takes 10 days to create a parent company, create a whole bunch of other companies with plans on how to execute them, including a major news empire, security French firm, and manufacturing divisions. And acquire a few of those very things if you need them. And then deploy and develop a new artificial intelligence. Maybe she was already ready, but that seemed, or like maybe they're just really smart, or it was just like a parallel thing, but it seems a bit suspicious. All right, moving on. The Turner tribe. Well,
the state of valuable advantage in recovering.
The Turner incident and those controversies around it did continue to go on until it, not only did negotiations collapse, but the star started to collapse. And so people became even more concerned about evacuations. Here's kind of a catch-up. Oh, hold on. Actually, I did skip for a reason.
Activation of prototype stellar transmuters in the Amar-occupied Minmatar systems of Turner, Vard, and Egmar. The constellations these systems belong to have also seen increased Amar Navy and Minmatar Republic fleet activity in recent months as Imperial forces aimed to capitalize on the strength of the 24th Imperial Crusade's occupation of much of the war zone. That these apparently experimental stellar manipulation projects are taking place far from Amar population centers and in occupied territory has fueled rumors that such experiments bear a significant risk of system-wide catastrophes. Active fighting in and around their locations has only further alarmed the interstellar community. The Amar Empire's captain, Marshal Sirdan Zerkosh, has dismissed protests at the Amar actions and claims that imperial law and interstellar treaties permit infrastructure development and resource extraction in occupied territories. Republic Ambassador Ketan Yun has described the Amar position as delusional arrogance. Republic Fleet Hetman General Kath Filmer warned of the grave danger posed by the Imperial stellar transmuters in systems which are traditionally Republic territory and primarily colonized by Minmatar settlers. In response, the Minmatar Tribal Liberation Force mounted an offensive that captured both the Vard and Egmar systems, among numerous others. By this success, the Capsuleer fighters of the Minmatar militia handed control of the Vard and Egmar transmuters to the Republic. Despite the risks, the potential for advances in energy and resource collection technology apparently seem high to the Republic as well as to the Empire. Following the capture of the Vard and Egmar systems, there are no signs that the Minmatar are about to shut down the stellar transmuters. It appears evident that the Republic plans to carry on with testing the technology and intends to develop it for its own use. In the face of extraordinary developments in the Amar Minmatar war.
Okay, so that's how it started, and this is how it went.
The Turner system's star appears to have been destabilized beyond recovery by the activity of the prototype stellar transmuter placed in orbit by the Amar Empire. Stellar radiation emitted by the star has been fluctuating at ever shorter intervals, seemingly heading towards an imminent crescendo. Scientists raised the alarm upon calculating that the interval between radiation spikes has been decreasing in a linear manner, indicating that a terminal phase will be reached at around 1700 hours New Eden Standard on November 2nd. What exactly will happen during this posited terminal phase is debated, but the common consensus is that a major stellar event will take place. One leading theory is that a radiation burst and stellar mass ejection similar to that seen during the Salin incident of YC111 will take place. While the output and scale of extreme stellar events can vary widely, any effects from such a catastrophe are expected to be significant across the system. On the orders of Captain Marshal Sirdan Zerkosh, the Amar Empire crew manning the stellar transmuter in Turner has been drawn down, and engineers are reported to be working on shutdown procedures. Orbiting closest to the star, the planet Turner 1 and the Republic station around it are believed to be at grave risk of catastrophic damage or destruction in the event of a stellar event of similar scale to the Salin incident. Despite offers to raise wages and give substantial hazard pay bonuses, planetary industry workers on Turner 1 have begun to evacuate from the planet. Thousands upon thousands of workers and their families are leaving, abandoning their equipment and leaving subsurface settlements empty of human life. Amar occupation forces have also long since left the planet, taking their own support workers and slaves with them. The only group willingly remaining behind are those nomadic descendants of the original Minmatar settlers of Turner 1. These nomad clans lived in isolation for generations before interstellar trade and planetary industry began to make their presence felt on the rocky desert world. The nomad clans have apparently been convinced current events are caused by intervening spiritual forces, due to the teachings of a shamanic figure known as Tanuk Gufran, the Absolver. He preaches that the planet and wider system will be purged of the conflict introduced by industry and war, leading to a transformation of Turner 1. The bizarre teachings of the Absolver are taken seriously by Minmatar traditionalists as the ways of the clans of Turner 1, and combined with the Amar presence, this has stymied efforts to evacuate the sizable yet untallied nomad population. Republic Fleet Hetman General Kath Filmer has hit out at the Amar Empire for its reckless ambition and monstrous negligence in deploying and operating the stellar transmuters. General Filmer also condemned the Amar for hindering evacuation of the population from the system. Amar Imperial forces have refused cooperation offers and flatly rejected efforts to broker a truce. The Empire's stance has made it impossible for the Republic fleet to mount a major evacuation operation. Nevertheless, flights of transport ships have infiltrated Turner and are struggling to move people from the Republic Parliament station above Turner 1 onto other stations further out in the system. The desperate hope of Minmatar rescuers is that a major stellar event will not doom the entire system in far-flung stations, and planets will provide at least some shelter from any cataclysm. Further complicating efforts to cleanly evacuate threatened populations in Turner is the presence of the Blood Raider Covenant and the Order of St. Tetramon. In the general celebration of their annual blood harvesting festival, the Blood Raiders have taken advantage of the increased chaos and conflict in the war zone to mount attacks on evacuation and military flights. The heretic hunters of the Order of St. Tetramon seek to oppose them, but as a notorious Amar military order, are hardly likely to be welcomed by the Minmatar colonists and fighters in the war-torn region.
By the way, if the sites of the harder Crimson Harvest sites, if the location of the harder Crimson Harvest sites seem random this year, it's because this is why.
This is Alton Havery, reporting for The Scope.
So how'd that end up for them? Let's find out. I hope they're okay.
The details of the disaster following the blast from the Star of Turner on November 2nd are still emerging in its aftermath. Closest to the star was the Imperial prototype stellar transmuter, understood to have destabilized the star through its experimental operations. A skeleton crew of Amar volunteers stayed aboard the transmuter, and attempts to avert catastrophe continued until the very last moments. As it became clear that all hope was lost and the terminal phase was imminent, Marshal Zirkosh addressed the transmuter crew, thanking them for their devotion and service to the Empire, before commending their souls to God. At 1700 hours, the Star of Turner entered its so-called terminal phase of instability, and the transmuter ceased to exist. The destruction of several capsuleer structures close to the star swiftly followed. Orbiting high above the barren planet of Turner 1 is the Republic Parliament Station, which has played a crucial role in the combined efforts of Empire and Capsuleer corporations to successfully evacuate the population of Turner 1. At the time of the terminal event, only a handful of crew remained aboard the station, maintaining docking and traffic operations to ensure that the maximum number of refugees could escape. Ahead of the blast, the station's spare shield generators and power had been diverted to reinforce the structure. Unfortunately, the hastily rigged enhancements did not deflect all radiation and supercharged particles, with many systems wrecked and secondary explosions and fires breaking out. Regardless, the shielding did save most of those who sheltered in the core of the station, which remained structurally sound despite the severe damage to peripheral superstructures. The worst effects by far were felt on the surface of Turner 1. As the planet closest to the star, it was clear that this barren world would be hit by any extreme energy burst, making its evacuation a top priority. Industry workers and many settlers were lifted off to safety, with only those refusing help remaining on the planet. Principal among those remaining behind were the nomadic Minmatar clans faithfully following the teachings of Tanak Gufran, the Absolver. In a final bizarre broadcast from the surface of Turner 1, the Absolver encouraged his followers to embrace the spiritual forces about to transform the system. Turner 1 has been scorched beyond recognition by the effects of the intense radiation burst and bombardment by a wave of supercharged plasma from the star. So far, there are no known survivors from the surface of the planet. Despite many warnings as to the risks, a large number of Capsuleers placed their ships and crews at serious risk to witness what promised to be an extraordinary event.
I was there.
Unsurprisingly, these ships took heavy damage from the radiation burst, with shields and armor systems collapsing in seconds, leaving damaged hulls totally exposed. A number of ships were destroyed when rival Capsuleers exploited these moments of extreme vulnerability to wreak destruction on one another. The chaotic struggle in space added to the death toll of this already tragic day. It is now becoming apparent that the Turner system has been permanently affected by the extreme stellar event. The widespread destruction is almost superficial on an astronomical scale, with the local space-time environment being profoundly altered, leading to very high unstable wormhole activity. For its part, the Amar Empire has declared its Stellar Transmuter research program a success, despite the extraordinary demise of its Turner operations. Ominously, the Empire appears confident it has gathered all the data required to take their exploitation of the technology forward to the next stage of development. In the aftermath of the Turner tragedy, Attention is turned to the stellar transmuters in Egmar and Vard, currently under the...
Yep, they successfully shut those down. So yeah, this is what permanently changed Turner, and I also want to point out that Turner is now also connected to Zarzak. Yeah, it is similar to the YC125 incident. However, the wormholes are located only at like it just means extra connections in Turner. Okay. Oof, I don't know how deep we're gonna get into this. The Talican. The Talican I get to be is one of the first ones I get to kind of brush over. So the Talican is one of the ancient races. We're going to go over actually kind of all of the ancient races real quick. The Talican are major stellar engineers. They are the constructors of Anoinkis. They disappeared like 8,000 plus years ago. We don't know very much about them. Other than the fact that we can find a lot of their ruins, both in, I want to say, Caldari space and in Anoinkis, or wormhole space. Sleepers, by contrast, are Jovians who have been biologically manipulated to have one of their lobes grow an extra brain lobe and then have that lobe removed so that way they can put an artificial one in to hook them into these giant banks of artificial reality a la the Matrix and live there in suspended animation. And so and they have automated drones, or maybe automated drones. It's hard to tell what exactly is going on with the sleeper, like the actual constructs that fly around and attack you. Those are obviously not exactly the sleepers. They're more like automated construct or automated drones, or perhaps being controlled by something or someone inside of the construct. But yeah, the sleepers are specifically Jovians that have been transformed into this hybrid race that is locked in suspended animation in this construct. The Tokmal are actually an ancient group of, I feel like, yeah, I do have that. The Tokmal is a human race that was once part of the Amar Empire. For unknown reasons, they were expelled from there, and after that lived in the Arise constellation. Some of the Empire believes that the Tokmal are foreigners to Blood Raiders. By all accounts, they worship some strange god and recognized as heretics. Perhaps that's why they were expelled. So the Tokmal are kind of understood to be the precursors, or the Empire offshoot of the Amar that would eventually come up with the Sani Sabek, which would eventually become like the blood religion of the Blood Raiders. I just recently did a video on the Blood Raiders where I talk about that. EOM dread attacks. In YC123, April, we have the beginning of this where, so on the outside, in the system of Tanu, which is an important Amatar Mandate system, it's like one of the, I think it's the capital of the Amatar Mandate, some dreads showed up and just started attacking. That were I'm trying to remember if we knew exactly what group it was that. So like these different dread attacks, each one was done by a different mercenary corporation of the opposing side. So it was a Mimitar group that attacked the first attack. But regardless, it wasn't the only one, because it was preceded almost immediately by a second attack, Caldari dreadnoughts that attacked Tirjiv, which is a very strong point of contention between the Gallente and Caldari war. I think Tirjiv is where the final battle of the Gallente Caldari war was fought over, if I remember correctly. And at that same time, the CEP chairman was we're going to go with assassinated. This is how Akimaka Saraki came into power, by the way, but that's a different topic. So then 2 days after the second attack, we get, well, there are subsequent multiple attacks, one in each empire, culminating in basically the Minmatar figuring out that these attacks, these dreads, are not actually the mercenary groups that they claim to be, but are actually the equilibrium of mankind, which is a fanatical offshoot of the Amar that believe that to bring things into equilibrium, all humans must die. So they're pretty yeah, the equilibrium of mankind is a doomsday cult of Amar origin that was founded roughly 1,500 years ago by Ossian Ardashipur, a relative both of Amar Emperor at the time and of the head of the Ardashipur family. The cult is centered around the corrupted teachings of Ahriman Khalid, believing that those who do not follow the equilibrium's way should be exterminated in order to bring about paradise. So the thing about that is that with all of this going on, it was revealed that supposedly Ossian Ardashipur is still alive. That's a big piece out of all of this. But also, it was culminated. Oh, here's the attack in Kaha. Oh no, this is the final one. So as these attacks kind of culminated, the final one was the attack in Kaha, where Chakade, which was a warlord, famous warlord for the Amar, who hated the Minmatar and in particular the Amatar, turns out that he has been an EOM plant this whole time for decades. There's several videos about that and all that stuff. So he shows up with his Titan and starts shooting at Kaha 3 multiple times until we finally destroy him. And that was the EOM dread attacks. The Vimoksha Chorus. The Vimoksha Chorus is a sub-branch of the Sanchez Nation. We only know a little bit about them. The biggest thing that we got is in the True Deliverance skins for Sanchez ships. There's a description that reads, "For too long you have been allowed to live in fear. For too long you have thought, if the nation comes, we will run, and we will hide, and we will be safe. Let it be known that there is no such thing as safe. There is only deliverance or annihilation." Recording recovered from station wreckage. Speaker identified as former true citizen Cornelius Sedek, now leader of the Vimoksha Chorus. So the Vimoksha Chorus, basically when Sancha was defeated, his control over his hive network was broken, right? So he did have a lot of loyalists that kind of remained loyal to the cause in the intervening time. But when Master Kuvaki reemerges back in 2008, I think it was, not everyone immediately falls in line. And one of the guys who does not fall in line is Cornelius Sedek. He does not allow himself and his group to rejoin the collective, but rather remain independent of the new Sanchez Nation forming around the new reemerging Master Kuvakai. Now, the Vimoksha Chorus is known to be even more radical and even more aggressive than normal Sanchez Nation, and has gotten credit for a lot of attacks and incursions and other stuff like that. They're also the ones that developed the Nirvana implants, and were working alongside the Templis Dragonars, which are a Caldari terrorist group, back during Dragonar Blitz. That was specifically the Vimoksha Chorus. Now, one of the problems with the Vimoksha Chorus is that in-game we can't identify Vimoksha Chorus versus non-Vimoksha Chorus. We don't have the capability of identifying them. So we have to keep track of their actions largely by the news to know which ones are being identified, which Sanchez attacks or representatives are ending up being correctly identified as Vimoksha Chorus. They've been relatively quiet recently. Yes. Templis, the Templis Corporation of players is named after the Templis Dragonars. That's correct. They thought it was funny. Archive K. Some of these are out of order. Here. Archive K is a secret organization. Well, I'll just get it from this quote. There's just this line. Archive K has been mentioned a few places, very few places, but places that make it important. Basically, when the House of Records was raided by the Guristas, which, for the record, Leopold and thereby the Deathless is likely related to this attack. Put a pin in that. But Archive K is also mentioned in Sine Wave Omega and Sine Wave Alpha as some other people that we'll talk about later, both associated with and are discussing Archive K. In fact, the Caldari is from Archive K. And this says that Archive K has long been rumored a secret intelligence and security branch of the House of Records. So Archive K is this it's like their Black Ops secret research and development, and also spying. It's hard to say. It's like they're Men in Black. Children of Light. Okay. Here's a fun one. So the Children of Light is a chronicle that is about a ship that gets destroyed at the Ein Ersta gate leading to Perimeter. This is, of course, a very popular gate. It's right at the Gallente border zone. It's right next to Jita. And there's a landmark there called the Children of Light. The legend goes that there was this, this ship that was destroyed there during the war, and now that area is haunted, right? Let's see. Rumors have spread across the border zones of vengeful ghost drones returning from the climactic battles at Ein Ersta. Perhaps they enact a haunting toll in the Caldari secession a century previous. Conspiracy theories, as they are their way, held that the spectral phenomenon was evidence of Jove experiments. Ironically, it was the dismissive Amarians who capitalized most on a winning belief that Mimitar slaves, that if they witnessed the specters of light, their firstborn son would be blessed with freedom. Despite the fact that the detours sometimes doubled the length of their journey, blah, 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 blah. Whilst few scientific studies were conducted onto the phenomena, or the Ayin Pixies, as they are come to colloquially be called, efforts were half-hearted, welcoming the income afforded by introduced jacket. Basically, there's this weird, unique phenomena that occurs on this gate, somewhat randomly. And we have never actually been able to figure out the actual cause. Eve Travel, who we will cite several other times, did a really good report of it. He's actually never seen it, and I accidentally drove him insane looking for it. This is what it used to look like when it was active in old school Eve. But thankfully for us, Hatiasai is significantly more lucky than Mark. So we have this. Oh, God. We will have this in a minute. In the meantime, I will say that, one of the things that's interesting about this effect, if you ever manage to see it for yourself, zoom in on your ship. There are special effects happening around the ship, too, which is part of the implication that there's something weird going on here. We'll look at new nebulas in the meantime. If White Storm was related to Vimoksha, I don't think so. So my theory about Vimoksha is that they're related. They're the Sansha that have been actively attempting to corrupt and manipulate the Triglavians. That's my guess. That those are they're the more Triglavian related Sansha that we rarely hear about. By the way, the reason why this happens is because like the way advertisements now work on YouTube is that like this is just a video on their YouTube channel, right? This is just one of their trailers, but you can set your trailers to be commercials, which is, you know, it works. It gets your videos out in front of people. If it, oh my God, that ad though is bizarre. I hate that ad. Yeah, Krezhnik's enemies, exactly. What would happen if the Minmatar were able to gather the tech and knowledge to make their own Poshman? Spoken like true Amarians. I heard your ship becomes invulnerable to all damage for 5 minutes after the lights. That's a good one. Oh, does it really not? It does not continue when I'm not. Oh my God, this is gross. Like it actually is kind of, to me, it's kind of gross. We'll just hold off. Man, look, I'm not going to comment on the whole YouTube ad thing in the last couple of weeks, other than the fact that it's been a little bit wild. This video is 2.5 minutes long. I'm hitting refresh to see if that helps. Does it? No, that didn't help at all. Whatever, man. We'll come back to it. Site 1. Site 1 is another location. Good, this is an easy one to go over. So, in the early days of wormholes, prior to Templar 1, there was an effort that was made between... so the reason why I didn't do that, Lazy, I'll tell you this right now. There's also another problem where they've started being very aggressive to anything using ad blocks, and so I figured that that would be even worse than having to play the ad in the background while talking about something else. So, yeah, look, I know that there are ways, but I had a lot of things to set up this morning, and that was one of the problems that just didn't get dealt with. Okay, let's just put it that way. Any rate, Site 1 is a location that was created as part of the Eric Jalon project. I recommend going there. It's in HiSec. It's very cool. We've been there multiple times on stream. It's in the ARM system. It's important for later on stuff too that we will talk about. And there's a bunch of cans that you can go up to and get little data slabs that tell you all about the different projects that happened during the Eric Jalon project, which was a joint research and development project between an NPC actor played by CB Dropbear and a bunch of players contributing. It's a really cool story. I've done some videos about it. Commercial's not over, by the way, so we'll just keep going. The Sun Sail 6. I feel like I missed one. Hold on. Oh no, that's coming up. What's the name of the website? Which website? No. That's the other thing, is that these super long commercials suddenly don't have skip buttons either. I just want to show like a 10-second clip. It's wild. That being said, you know, YouTube, thanks for paying me money. Everybody else, let's thank YouTube for giving me money by liking the stream and commenting and all of that good stuff, because YouTube is our friend. Yeah, that's it. That's how that works. I'm sure of it. There's another ad. Okay, whatever, man. Sun Sail 6. This is one of the ones that I don't know as much about. So, oh, shoot. Actually, I need to go back to Archive K, because I skipped a few things. So, Archive K, I talked about how Archive K was mentioned in Sine Wave Alpha and Sine Wave Omega, But Sine Wave Alpha and Sine Wave Omega are very critical stories. I have breakdowns on my Notion lore page. The storyline you were referring to earlier about Templar 1. Inheritance? So down below, there is a link to my Notion with links to basically everything that I'm showing here. It should be there. Yeah, Fed's squid car propaganda is an ad. Now that's not fair. Am I going to get to see a thing now? Yes! Admittedly, okay, fine, it's a 9-minute long video. But this is the phenomena of the Children of Light. We can just see it at the very beginning. Ready? This is the Iron Ursta Gate. Boom, there you go. That's the Children of Light effects. Now, again, you could zoom, if you see this, then you can zoom in and see extra effects on your own ship at the time. Again, thank you to Katya Sai for all of your hard work and great videos of exploration and lore. But yeah, so this is the Children of Light, and it's supposedly ghosts. Super glad that we waited for 3 minutes. That's for that. Anyway, so the Sun Sail 6. This is one that I know a little bit less about. I just realized I probably should have put these things in order first, but we'll find out. 607, 726, 1126, 801. So then that goes over here. And 809. I think that's right. Okay, so let's start at the beginning. I think at the beginning. Ah, yes. So it all begins. The coast of Merca on Matar has been struck by a vicious assault by the Blood Raider Covenant on the seaport of Sunsili. Especially badly hit by the reports, the Blood Raider strike forces is believed to have staged out of a forward operating base in the Evanar constellation. Mining installations in the Otger system has also been struck by the Blood Raiders, with the cultist pirates apparently taking advantage of mobilization and redeployment movements of local Republic fleet elements. This is, by the way, 2019. The coastal zone of Micra Merca continent is reported to have been saturated with Deathglow missiles, particularly at key locations such as the bustling and popular seaport and resort of Sunseli. Casualty reports are suggesting hundreds of thousands dead and injured at least. Unconfirmed reports indicate that Blood Raiders took a number of people captive. It is unclear of what motivated this assault could be, although there is some suggested that the Raiders, like Sancho's Nation, might be trying to bolster their numbers. If reports of the Raiders were primarily targeting teenage children are accurate, this is a sinister, tragic twist amidst the true chaos of the Triglavian invasion. Then, a few weeks later, we see protests by local clans in Sunsail as 6 arrested Merca defense officials transferred to tribal council custody. So 6 people were arrested in relationship to this attack. Um, 5 days later, Sunsail 6 missing after terrorist attack on Sebastor tribe Marshal's convoy leaves 3 dead. A terror attack on Sebastor tribal Marshal's convoy has killed 3 marshals and apparently resulted in the kidnapping or escape from custody of the so-called Sunsail 6. A group of defense officials from the Micra Merca region under the suspicion for negligence or sabotage following a recent Blood Raider attack on Sunseli urban coastal zone of the northern continent of Matar. Although reports are confused, it appears that the Sebastor marshals took charge of the Sundeli 6 this morning, following their arrival on a secure RSS flight to the Dokvat Airport, south of the Sun Seli proper. A convoy of tribal marshals' vehicles carrying the prisoners was apparently in transit along the stretch of the Snow Eater Road between Dokvat and Sun Seli when they are assaulted by a heavily armored force. And, you know, there's a lot of details about this, but the whole responding to the news. My thoughts are with the family of the dead and injured tribal marshals and also with those of the 6 Mikra Merca officials who remain innocent in the eyes of the tribes until otherwise shown to be guilty. Sebasur security and investigative forces are hard at work on the Snow Eater Road. In Dokvat and Sun Seli, justice will be done for all those who have suffered from these vile terrorist attacks. Speaking of which, you can see, look, there's a Moksha chorus raid happening at the exact same time. Yep. Then, 7 days later, we get something, right? I didn't just pull this up for nothing. I didn't put this on the list for nothing, right? Hold on. Yeah, there it is. No results after week-long search for Sun Seli 6. So they haven't found him in the manhunt. And then the next month, in 2019, November 26th, we see more of a Moksha Chorus stuff, but also standoff in Mikra Merca region as Sebasur tribe marshals refuse to hand over evidence to RSS agents. Chief Akasa Midgeler blasts Kumatar Alec Baralsh for gross disrespect and soon after funerals of Sun Seli 6. So, you know, this has been a big controversy within the relatively recent Mimitar plot lines. Not sure if it has gone any further than that at this point. Maybe somebody else can tell us in the comments below. All right. Where are we? We're too far at the top. The Semikey Cyberworm. This is another one of the ones that I'm not 100% like hot on, but we have basically in 2019, January 17th, in Semikey, an intruder with alleged connections to Lidai broke into Semikey for Xanadu biohazard containment facility and was apprehended in the station authorities after accessing and sabotaging several station services. It is understood that this breach was detected in time to issue a station-wide stop and detain alert. One person was apprehended. Early unverified reports indicate Valkalalo, whatever, may have had the assistance of one or more Xanu employees. Investigators from Ishikone Watch are still assessing the extent of this breach and any damage done. Xanu has made a statement that the wide umbrella of targets was likely intended to obfuscate the true objectives of the operations. Refusing to further comment, requests for further comment were refused, and questions on the investigation progress referred to Ishikone Watch. There is widespread accounts from Semikey 4 Station that residents that malfunction in artificial gravity, communications, and internal transit. Sources indicate that a routine interbus transport moving personnel from Xanadu Station to a nearby Alestria warehouse during the incident carried a digital stowaway, a malicious virus designed to target implants. While the virus went undetected in the Xanu Station, Alestria employees often have brain augmentations which assist in tasks associated with their jobs, such as translations, team coordinations, and mathematics. When the contaminated transport data synced with the Alestra warehouse network, the hostile code was spread into integrated staff. Affected individuals report severe migraines, dizziness, nausea, and double vision. Aikomari Onu Enforcement, Agatin Ku, a noted information warfare expert, commented, quote, malware like this is mostly reported in rumor, as the required resources to develop it are exclusive to nations, megacorporations, and similar large actors. While a general consensus holds that it exists, entities that develop it must avoid disclosure because such tactics are most effective when least understood. That being said, this malware does resemble an attack on Li-Di physicist Alohn Gardner, who has been in a coma for nearly a decade. So, I just noticed that. That's the same that's the same last name. So this must be like maybe the daughter. So a decade prior to this, a prominent Caldari physicist working in Li-Di Corporation was the target of a digital assault yesterday evening. Hostile software installed into her cerebral implants, hijacked into the devices, sent her into a coma. All attempts to wake her from the coma has been unsuccessful, and Li-Di biomedical specialists are currently looking into ways to reverse the damage sustained by her implant system. The attack occurred on her while she was downloading a new update on the cyber subprocessor implant, a prototype model running special software developed internally by Li-Di. The malicious code had been isolated and quarantined, but Li-Di has set most of its corporate servers to a restricted and secure mode as a precautionary measure. The virus is not a danger to the cluster as large. The program was made to specifically target the configuration of Mrs. Vel'ash, whatever, implant, and would not been able to spread far from this station, which was the point of origin. So it's a targeted thing. She was an employee at Li-Di Corporation for 17 years. It is known in scientific circles as the lead researcher for a number of teams at Li-Di. The 33-year-old scientist focused her research mainly on storage optimization, hyperspatial technology, and Planck bubble physics. Okay, so she was 33 years old when this thing came out, when this happened. And here, 10 years later, this other person is 45. So the other person is older. Stein is older than the scientist. So it's like a brother or, I mean, they would have been 12 when she was born. So, yeah. Either way, then is this, yeah. Then that moved to the forums where, oh no. Yeah, where Lati, this is a player, posts this request for information from the inner circle. Very official looking. And Ovig Dursk, the head of Concord Task Force Gamma, replied by saying, pending the final determination by ULI Accords, the task force will be taking no further action on the matter of the disputed materials. On the other hand, it is my grave, indeed sad duty to report that the deaths of 3 members of the Sorrow Black Troop Explosive Ordnance Disposal Unit tonight. These brave and loyal men and women died while attempting to defuse and remove one of 30 improvised explosive devices that have been placed in various locations on board the Mastacon 9. What does it have anything to do with anything? I don't know. That's the Semiki incident. No, I'm sorry. This is the wrong one. This is the wrong one. That's why. Wait. I think I might be having a stroke. Give me a second. Yeah, never mind. We are talking about this. That is what we're talking about. The Semiki cyber. Got it. Any rate, things seem to deteriorate. Ishikone Watch issues first. After an adaptive virus infiltrated the networks a week ago, in the latest incident today, unmanned internal transit car with the Xanu station accelerated beyond safety limits and was derailed, crashing through several internal bulkheads. So basically, this virus continues to cause problems. One of the areas affected by the alleged perpetrator appears to have been one of our rogue drone disposal facilities, and our experts are, as well as the consultants from Ishikone Xanadu Hyperspatial Inquiries, Ikami, confirm that a great deal of the base code resembles an infectious rogue drone subroutine. So Ikami and iRed are both player groups, but this was like woven between the two. That's why I said this is take one. So enforcement speculates that the attack resembles the one made on Alohn Gardner because it may use the same base subroutine. Rogue drone software and firmware has a reputation for being malleable. It is not easy to manipulate for specific goals, but when introduced to new code, it is very good at repurposing. Sane experts avoid using it as a foundation for bigger projects because of its unpredictable nature. It's far more likely to backfire than anything else. The attack on Alohn notwithstanding. It would assist our researchers immensely if amicable parties would be able to gather and supply us with relevant research materials. Blah, 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 blah. Then is this before or after? We have, 124. Oh, this is before that. Okay. So the quarantine it breaks out of the quarantine. That's why all these weird things are happening. Oh, here's the Sundale 6 escaping thing, right? So let's look at both of these. Or did we just... Jeez. Now I'm having difficult... No, we already covered that. Now I'm having... This is why this is so difficult, guys. I'm trying to keep it all straight. Federal Senate holds closed oversight meeting on Semiki investigating FIO penetration. Yeah, okay. That's not that big of a deal. No results after week long. Am I looking up? Oh, this is Sundale. I'm so bad at this. Here we go. Semiki station networks undergoing compartmentalized purge after corrupted remote sites cleared. Following successful joint operations in Semiki by Ushikone Watch and Wiakomi Peace Corps, clear a number of in-system remote communication sites and navigation transporter beacons of corruption. A compartmentalized purge of station networks is ongoing. What is the corruption? Oh, that's the... Yeah, that's what we were just looking at. Here we go. Semiki network attack may have been cover for intrusion into FIO data, claims whistleblower. Valor Essence, a powerful network intrusion attack in Semiki, was primarily aimed at penetrating a Federal Intelligence Office covert listening post operating in the Alestra warehouse in the system, according to a whistleblower claiming to have knowledge of the Gallente Federation's investigation into the incident. The Caldari side's investigation has focused on the background and apparent motivations of the alleged perpetrator, and understandably so, but our side immediately focused on the FIO's covert posts on the Alestra station. The word from on high was that any sign of intrusion was to be reported straight up the line. When the investigation uncovered evidence of data siphons running on the personal implants of FIO staff, all hell broke loose. The hammer came down on the whole business, and the Black Eagles got involved. Everyone on that post disappeared into a black hole. If you ask me, Vala was a cat's paw for anyone trying to play, was a cat's paw for someone trying to play another game entirely, end quote. So, I don't know if we've, like, again, this is another one of those ones that we haven't gotten a successful, like, resolution of this because it's kind of an open mystery to a certain extent. But it's another piece of this whole puzzle that has been coming together. The Lost Idama. That one is a bit shorter. Oh yeah, that's the one that's in the wrong space. All right. So Idamas are like the Intaki people have a religion that believes in reincarnation, and most of the time they use technology in order to do this reincarnation. However, Idamas supposedly are so spiritually pure that they can do this reincarnation without the use of technology. So you can kind of shorthand Idamas to be like Dalai Lama, you know, this idea that like they reincarnate. So one of the lost Idamas, like before they disappear, before she died, she said that she was going to be reborn far away. And for a long time, they never found her, because they've got these methods to discover who they're reborn as or whatever. But this person was known as the Lost Adama. Well, then a group of Intaki religious people discovered that, or at least began to allege that the Lost Adama was found on a Khanid ship. They attempted to purchase the slave from the Khanid warlord, but the Khanid guy refused. Lord Kufail has denied those accusations. Oh no. However, Lord Kufail refuses to sell in Waro to Erlan, stating that the Ida monk is obviously mistaken. Erlan is now claiming that Lord Kufail acquired the slave illegally, citing lacks of transactions or punitive records. Lord Kufail has denied these accusations with strongest terms, the accusations of the monk being illegal missionary work on behalf of foreign religious colonizers. This is important because of this, or right after this, a series of attacks begin in Amar territory. This is related to Chakade. This is related to the Blood Raiders. This is related to Deathglow and all that stuff. But for the purpose of this discussion, basically, in the midst of all of this chaos, the loyal Intaki attempt to raid the ship with the Lost Adama on it and fail. Most importantly, at the bottom of this document, it says, sources in Caldari State claim that Khanid Royal Commodore Araz Nomaya has met with representatives of the Antara Direct Action and Anakonorbo Brigade PMCs with a view to securing their services for, quote, counter-terrorist operations. So the Intaki begin the terrorism, and the Khanid are now talking to the Antara Direct Action and Anakonorbo Brigade about counter-terrorist operations. Next, the Apocrypha event. We kind of already covered that, but it'll be a little bit more clear. Basically, there were these ancient stashes of Isogen 5 that were created by an ancient race that were stashed between the star and the first moon of very particular stars. And one of them was the location of where Jamil's super weapon, which is going to be talked about later. The super weapon was brought there by the road drones, and they were harvesting and collecting a bunch of Isogen 5. Isogen 5 is this extremely rare isotope of Isogen, which we will also talk a little bit about later. But suffice to say, these sites were quantumly entangled. So to stop the super weapon from falling into the hands of the Blood Raiders, the Thucker pilot attacked the Isogen 5 cache, blowing it up, causing the Apocrypha event, where all 10 sites of Isogen 5 exploded, leading to the emergence of the wormholes. Eating Calm is an Amarian plot. I kind of love this one because this is the one that I actually had to move. It was down here, and then it moved up here because it got confirmed as I was, over the course of the last year, more or less. Where'd it go? Hold on. Just when I thought that I had. Either way. Wait, no. I do know what I'm talking about. Hold on. What I want to do is go back to sine wave alpha and sine wave omega. Okay? So in sine wave alpha and sine wave omega, as part of the events, as I mentioned earlier, so Zoshan in this story is the head, or is the basically the investigator, right? He is the Ministry of Internal Order sub-inquisitor, right? And in Sine Wave Alpha, he witnesses Sakuni assassinate Sata Mochin, right? So he witnesses that assassination. And so Sine Wave Omega, in part, is him dealing with the investigation of that. So he reports it to his commander. So Ramsel Zoshin reports it to Sarkovus, which is the MIO chief inquisitor within the city. Okay. And then that's when Sarkovus calls his buddy. His buddy is Avo Tagamatsu, which is the Archive K section head for the Amar Caldari Diplomatic Intelligence Branch. So once again, that's where Archive K comes from. This is like a secret group. And in order to contact him, Sarkovus identified himself as card player. That was his authentication. They seem to know each other quite some time and have some history with probably some Black Ops operations between the Amar and the Caldari. The reason why this is interesting is because it proceeded to be... Oh, here we go. In this article, Gallente Federation rocked by loss of systems to Triglavian's Amara Empire celebrates Foundation Day. So in August of YC122, August 2020, right? While the Triglavian invasions are like in their absolute like most hostile time, where they're actively taking systems, we're fighting tooth and nail over every single system as they come up. We see in the comment, or in the news, Sardar Colonel Parvas Sarkovus named Chief of Edencom Intelligence Directorate, and Director Havo Tagamitsu of Caldari House of Records appointed head of EID Cultural Intelligence Section. So there you go. The two people who were talking to each other with secret code words in Sine Wave Omega about Archive K and their monitoring of stuff, they end up being two highly ranked members of Edencom Intelligence. So everybody should be super surprised when the Caldari discover that actually, oh wait, the Amar have been using the Caldari or Edencom as a spy ring. Oh no! Investigators from Caldari Navy Intelligence are understood to have worked closely with operatives of Archive K of the House of Records, an organization believed to be a secret intelligence and security agency answering to the chairman of the chief executive panel, Akimaka Saraki. The investigation team has apparently gathered materials, data, and testimony to be used in the report on the Edencom Concord Task Force that the Caldari delegate Menz Repala, CEO of Ishikoni Corporation, intends to present to a closed session of the Concord Assembly. So yeah, this is where this is how diplomacy broke down between Caldari and Amar, and where the diplomacy really started between the Caldari and the Mimitar, which is why we have the new political alignments that we have now. So it was basically figured out that effectively Amar was using Edencom to spy on or get technology from the Caldari when it came to like their Othanoon stuff, right? So attendees from the Caldari side are also indicated to include members of Caldari Navy Intelligence, even the secretive head of the House Records Archive K. It has been reported that the representative of NOH Internal Security and Suvi's Peace and Order Unit corporations are also involved in this conference. One confirmed attendee is the famed Minato Zumari, a hero of the Caldari Navy and founder of the mercenary corporation Zumari Force Projection. Blah, 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 blah. So, this is their big, this is when they start talking about political agreements because of this discovery. Okay? So, yep, Edencom is an Amar plot. Also, there's other things too, there was a period of time where Edencom was trying to get intelligence agents in Mimitar space, but Mimitar was refusing. Probably, and it seemed be because they suspected that Edencom, or Concord has always been kind of used by Amar as a weapon against the Mimitar in a way that the Mimitar don't like. I'll put it that way. Okay. Glean information. Hey, something easy. So this kind of got famous a couple days or like a couple weeks ago. But the Glean information is a collection of items that can be gotten if you entosis a Jovine observatory. Now you can get, Antikythera elements and the data. I think you can still get the data codes for the previous, to find the Zarzat gates. But originally and primarily, you also can get these gleaned information, which discuss different records in different times. One of the things, these basically seem to represent observations being made by the Gallente, like records of observations, right? We're not going to go into all of them right now. We can dig into them deeper, and other people have another time. Each one of them kind of has their own. Some people have theories about them. Some of them are more understood than others. This is kind of its own iceberg. But one of the one I will bring up that's interesting is the final one, which is cloaking system failure, proximity alert, initiate system shutdown. So this shows that also they could not predict this. So these are comments about, it's believed that this one is about the drifters and the explosion of Caroline Star. And this one is with the drifters now entering into K-space. They begin to find the Jovian observatories and force them to decloak, which is how we found them. That's why that's the last record. Yeah, we're still at the first layer, man. And we're gonna have to call it after this. The broker is a famous villain of EVE Online from Empyrean Age. The broker is well known for having multiple personalities or multiple identities and being a very power broker. He's the one that put Highland Tukos into power, leading to the Second Kaldarian Gallente War. His major objective during the Empyrean Age was to disrupt the production of Inserum, which was the antidote for Vitok, the drug used by the Amar to control slaves. It seemed like the broker had been paid by the Amar to attempt to stop Ishikone from developing this. This led to up to and including an event that I'm going to need to get rid of some tabs to be able to go even see, I think. Where? Really? Hold on. Okay, well, fine. Did I not do it? Oh, yeah, I did. So, which leads to this event. Which we talk about this later on, too. Actually, no, I'll just save that for another time. So yeah, the broker is kind of the main villain of the Empyrean Age, and we'll talk about more about him the next time when we go even deeper into the iceberg. So apparently today has been the first layer of the iceberg, already ton to cover. We obviously have a ton more to cover, but we're going to have to get to that next time. But until then, I have been Ash Shirathi. I've been playing this game since 2010, talking about it since 2012, and I'm here to put even the context for you, my fellow Empyreans. Thank you guys so much for coming. If you are interested in this continuing on, please make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't, like and comment on the stream. Make sure I don't forget to come back to this. And also let me know if I should redo this first section now that we've kind of staggered through it once. Whatever. Is it interesting to you? And also in the comments below, please, if you have anything else that should be in the iceberg, put a link or, talk about it in the comments below. Please cite references so that way I know what the hell I'm talking about when I add it to this whole thing. And we will return and get more of this lore presented. I'm not going to promise tomorrow, but I'm going to shoot for tomorrow. That's going to be the best I can give you. How about that? We also obviously know that there's more news coming when it comes to Havoc at some point this week that we'll have to talk about. Tomorrow is Halloween. Happy Halloween. Etc., etc. But I do have some things I want to talk about, enough that I actually made notes. So I do want to, here's my end of stream stuff. First of all, if you want to support the stream, I want to thank everybody who watches the stream. And of course, we thank the sponsors and all that stuff. But You guys becoming members, this is actually becoming an increasingly useful thing. Like, it just takes $1 or $2. You know, like the $1 gets you early access to the videos. Only a little bit more gets you like the other perks and whatnot. Try to make it cool. At any rate, more memberships mean more emotes and helps me have a more stable channel and lets YouTube know that people like my channel. You can also support with merch. I do want to go back and maybe even add some new merch to it, so keep an eye on our merch store. If you can't find the link for whatever, just DM me directly and I will send it to you. So if you want to get any of the 07 or the mug, like the Convocation Empyreans logo, etc. You know, and if you get something, send me a picture and I'll be able to show it to everybody. Also, I already know that you're going to make a lot of nice content. That's true. So speaking of which, the Invited is getting up in gear. You know, I've been asked a lot of people what can Invited do right now to be ready. There isn't that much. The Angel Epic Arc and other stuff like that to get your standings high enough is useful. Obviously, it's highly camped now, so be very careful. But it is still doable under the right conditions. My pacifier last night notwithstanding. But the Invited is recruiting. We would love more people to come and take part. And I have actually gotten in contact with some Gallente, some representatives, not Gallente, on the Garissa side of things. So hopefully I'll talk more about that soon. But just realize that like the primary mission of the Invited is actually going to be making sure that Zarzak is as inhabitable as a place as possible. That's our primary objective, is to maximize the value of Zarzak. So that means, you know, stocking the market, building fits, having, you know, guides and stuff, and also, of course, attacking and disrupting the war zone. Please get involved if you're interested. The Invited is a member of the Convocation family. So, of course, if joining the Invited also gets you access to the Convocation proper and to Aderon Robotics if you're interested in Gallente faction warfare, while we wait the 2 weeks up until Havoc. Also, the Discord, as has been helpfully linked by Danny down below. If you do want to join any of the Convocation, please come onto the Discord and come hang out with us. But even if you don't, the Discord is also kind of the Discord for the stream. There is a roles channel at the top that allows you to assign roles to yourself, be that, you know, if you want to be voice activated in chat or, you know, specify your time zone or, you know, or more importantly for this conversation, you can flag yourself as interested in YouTube and Twitch posts, because that way when content creators go live or put up videos, they can post in the media channel with those pings. And if you've flagged yourself for them, then you will receive those pings. It is the most reliable way to know when I am going live. And of course, supporters get their own channel. And, you know, we do have an EVE Universe channel where we discuss things that is actually becoming more and more lively, which I kind of like. And yeah, I do want to just conclude this by saying, like, we say thank you a lot. YouTubers in general and me specifically, like, oh, thanks to all the viewers. Just to let you guys know a couple milestones. One, we have recently passed over 1 million views, which is gigantic for the channel. And around the same time, we crossed over the 7,000 subscribers mark. It is cliche at this point, but I don't care. This could not have happened without you guys. You know, there was a long time actually where I was making content where people were like telling me that I have criminally low views. And, you know, I mean, some people might argue that still. You know, when I first started, I struggled to get from 1,000 to 2,000, you know, viewers or subscribers. And now it has continued to be pretty successful and steady in spite of everything. But I'm really happy about that because I believe in what I'm doing here. I believe that EVE Online is an important game. And I believe that EVE Online doesn't do its due diligence in helping people understand it enough to be able to enjoy it. And so I feel like EVE deserves to be a good game. And I feel like, and I'm not even joking, we as a human species benefit from having EVE Online as a game, and for it to be as good as possible. And so that's why I've dedicated years of my life, hours of my time, and made this into my hobbled together of a job to raise literacy in EVE Online, because I feel like what my hope is that by giving people these basic cornerstones to understanding EVE Online, they will then go on and make a more vibrant, the greater the EVE literacy, the better the game, as I often say. So, yeah, didn't even know that Eve had lore until you saw my vids. Exactly. Actually, I wasn't even that big into the lore until I found out like how deep the lore was and how much it was covered up by the player base talking bad about it. And that's when I was like, oh no, I need to showcase this stuff. Thanks, OM. But yeah, no, that's what this has always been about, this channel, is helping raise literacy of EVE Online, to help make sure that EVE Online can be as good of a game as possible for as many people as possible, because I think that is unironically an important game. So thank you to CCP for, of course, making it. But more importantly, thanks to you, to all of you who have believed in me, who've subscribed, who've liked the channel, who've shared it with other people, who have joined the corporation, who have applied to the corporation with the note, I played back in blah and left in blah, and watched Ash's video, and now I want to join the convocation. To the hundreds of you who have literally hundreds of you who have done that, much to the chagrin of my recruiter, man, thank you guys. And yeah, it's why I do what I do, because I feel like one of the big risks of becoming a YouTuber like this is that, like, obviously it's like, oh, you're so full of yourself, or whatever. I constantly doubt what I do, and look, I could be a software developer again. I could be doing other stuff. I'm raising my 10-year-old autistic son and trying to make that work, and not getting a lot of support. So my time is not my own, except for very limited amounts of time where he's at school. So working a full job is very impractical. So I've talked about this before, like, in spite of it all, I think that what I'm doing here is important, because I think that EVE is important. And the fact that you guys allow me to do it, and the fact that you guys believe in me, and the fact that you in doing so, confirm my belief that what I'm doing is useful and important to people, it just means the world to me. So yeah, on that note, I do want to thank my biggest supporters as they get written down below, and I do want to redo how they get representative, hopefully by the time the next stream happens, but I don't know. Look, being sick for a week got me super knocked out, so that is important. Like, that's an important next step for me. But for now, I kind of want to thank all of you, man. If you've watched a video, if you're watching this right now, whether it live or a pre-recorded version, I can pretty much just, I ended the video 10 minutes ago, guys. If you're still here, you're the reason why I'm still here. And thank you for that. And on that note, I've been Ash Sharathi. I've been playing this game since 2010, talking about it since 2012, and I'm here to put EVE into context for you, my fellow Empyreans. Thank you all for coming, and until next time, I'll see you in space.
Break every city